Now this is what it's all about, y'all.
Finally!
On June 17th, 2022, I uploaded a video talking about a whimsical looking game that got announced during Showcase season. Absolutely stunned at how distinct it looked in a wave of games that weren't particularly catching my eye. And after 2 long years, the Plucky Squire has finally emerged and I got to get my hands on it.
You know how long I've been waiting for this?
It did not take long after its first reveal for me to put this in my list of most anticipated titles coming out, with its striking visuals and cool twists, all in a digestible package. In a time where we need different is right where this title sits. So sit back, relax, and let's talk about the Plucky Squire. This 2D, 3D action-adventure platformer centers in on a storybook character named Jot and the fictional art-filled land of Mojo. Jot's the hero and routine savior of the lands, and he's been on many adventures with his friends Violet and Thrash to stop every plan that the main op of the story, Humgrump, tries to cook up. And I mean every plan. Until one day Humgrump discovers the fact that they're in a story themselves, and harnesses his sorcerer powers to cast Jot out of the book and bring a bunch of heinous things into it on his quest to scratch his itch to be the main character and ruler over the story. There's additional cast sprinkled in the narrative like your mentor Moonbeard, Pip, Paige, and more as Jot and co try to fight their way across 2D and 3D obstacles to give their story a good ending. The gameplay folds into this narrative by blending many things together over the foundations of platforming and mainstay action-adventure concepts. The movement, the combat, the puzzles and such aren't groundbreaking, but the way they're presented is really creative and left of the norm that we've seen in recent times. Now this game ran me about 8 to 10 hours and lasted a couple of play sessions to get through, and in that time there were only a couple of things that I can nitpick on from my perspective. So in terms of the criticals, I only had these to highlight. Now these are just me things and wishlist tweaks, and for starters, it would have been nice to have a bit more enemies and combat sequences to fight through. Not like Dynasty Warrior's Thousand Heartless battle numbers, but just a few more to add some urgency. In that same pocket, I would have liked an additional difficulty mode. You had story mode and adventure mode, but a combat or pledge your life and soul to Miyazaki in the gang mode would have been a nice add, but it's more wishlist than a knock on the game. Outside of that, I felt that there was a bit of delay and lag on the book controls when I pressed the input at times, and there were a few crashes. Specifically on the final boss like 3 times in a row after I beat him, so I couldn't finish the game. But we got through it in the end, and beyond those little tweaks, there's not too much to be overly critical of. And with my criticisms out the way, we can get right to the good subjects of the internet. We face a mighty problem in this day and age. People don't understand what words mean. So I, Triplonius the Wise, took it upon myself to impart wisdom upon you, the humble viewer, in a segment I like to call Words Mean Things. And today's word has caused a lot of ruckus in its day to the detriment of many of things that weren't exactly as what the connotation suggests. And that word is mid. And so I pose the question to you. Is mid A, dreadful, B, so-so, or C, outstanding? No, take your time. Sound it out if you need to. Alright, so when it comes to the word mid, the answer is B, so-so. For those that were correct, well done. And for those that were incorrect, your dunce caps are being mailed post-haste. Mid's formal definition is literally in the middle of or amidst, and its more used and formal meaning is simply neither very good nor very bad. No, mid does not mean awful or anything purely negative like so many seem to put forth. Mid is average, standard, ordinary, or mediocre even. If you want to call something out for being less than mid in your eyes, try replacing the word with more apt terms like substandard, lousy, or 3rd or 4th rate like Kyber from Yu-Gi-Oh! Trust your brain will thank you for doing it. Remember, scholars, mid is in the middle of or neither very good nor very bad. Well, that is all for our time today, and I must bid you adieu, but don't forget, words mean things. Positives, man. Everything about the abilities and movesets I enjoyed. The tasteful pure combat options on display with the sword throws and AoE attacks were easy to pick up on, weren't too crazy, but looked good on the eye. Now the abilities that influenced the entire book itself, like the tilting, turning, and stopping of the pages, was super cool to me. It had direct consequence in puzzles and combat alike, had a good pace to acquire each new skill, and in conjunction with the pure combat moveset, made for a healthy bag of tricks to use in the game once it all came together. The game didn't need a sheer number of skill points and trees to make Jot the ultimate character. The toolkit they provided was more than enough to cover the action part of the action-adventure in this context. Now along the way, this journey was infused with a healthy amount of nostalgia, most particularly in the minigames and specialized boss sections. And those were healthy changes of pace and fun. You had Tetris, Punch-Out!, classic RPG battles like Final Fantasy and Dragon Quest, rhythm games, and it all clicked. It gave the gameplay a lot of different dimensions and switches of pace that were just fun and unexpected, and it was pure homage to the experiences that the dev team at All Possible Futures were fueled by, and that the younger generation have no idea about. What you know about this, young blood? My personal favorite break in the gameplay was actually Pip's moment to shine, where he has to sneak around Deep Doom security with the upbeat jazz music playing in the background. To me, this was the high point of the game's soundtrack, and was just a cool little vibe. Pip was even doing the Michael Jackson smooth criminal leans and slides. I was moving to the beat and everything. It was fun. Puzzles weren't too daunting and did well to incorporate many of the mechanics you learned along the way to keep things rolling. Side note, and big up to the environmental effect changes on the word puzzles. That was a really cool layer of detailing to add. The actual loop and blend of 2D to 3D gameplay in the world was incredible. I think this is one of the coolest concepts that stuck the landing in 2024, to be quite honest. My mind is cast back to the giant tank / buzzsaw fight in the latter half of the game as Jot and Thrash try to take down the machines that were brought into the book by Humgrum. Amidst the squabble with enemy troops, progressing through the fight entails jumping out of the world into 3D, with bombs from inside the book jumping out of the page at you, and using your power to stop the moving saw in its tracks so Thrash can remove the batteries fueling the thing. Clear jumps from 2D to 3D planes, active hazards and enemies in the play area, and it never broke that steady thread of immersion and seamlessness. That epitomized how well this game came together to deliver that 2D and 3D gameplay experience rolled into one perspective. I thought the backtracking was injected into the game very well. As you flip the pages back, the answers were cleverly placed in plain sight with a bit of a guide to help, but still very cool how All Possible Futures effectively used the pages they had to sequence each step of the game we went through. In terms of the writing and story, I thought it was pretty cool. There was consistent acknowledgement of everyone's perspective relative to the literal book they're in, some funny fourth wall breaks, witty and tasteful dialogue while still keeping the overall feel whimsical and closer to a kid's story. Laying down some extra narrative stakes and having the story's creator, Sam, and his inspiration hang in the balance was nice to see as well. We learned in the game that if the story doesn't have a good ending, Sam would lose his spark to create, and that would lead to knock-on effects in the real world. As much as this game is confined within the bounds of a book, it was nice how interwoven implications in the story, much like the other layers of this experience, have a lot of connection and synergy outside of it. And to the piece that is estanched in my mind, this art style and direction was delivered in top tier fashion in my opinion. For starters, that 2D style strikes the balance of having a crisp feeling to it while also looking like it came from older times. The colors, the character designs, all of it had such pop that it was a pleasure to look at. It's just so full of life. Hell, even the book itself has some character. The perspectives changed with the gameplay as you went vertical and then slants to show off all the different pieces of the environment and where the gang traveled through. I absolutely love the commitment to showing off that art and creativity in each way, and even adding some big contrast in presentation. Speaking of which, Humgrum's altered game intro is probably the best sequence in this game. That shit was hard. What was in the book had so much life to its design, and what really brought this game up a level to me was the fact that the art and its execution was consistent across the 2D and 3D planes. The transitions from plane to plane, both environments literally being melded together, all of it was buttery smooth and a delight to play through. Absolutely the standout characteristic from my end. The Plucky Squire is a contained experience and does have a few nitpicky limitations in its difficulty, but for $30 and 8 to 10 hours of gaming, this is a damn good time. The gameplay provides a solid level of engagement, and while it gave homage to some of the seminal experiences in gaming history, it adds flair in its own way with the characters and the world they get to see. This is All Possible Futures' very first game, and I hope it's nowhere near the last and we get more stories from them. My final say is cop this thing if you have $30 to spare and are looking for a good time you can get into with no major time commitments. Always being in the trenches of the latest hero shooter, MOBA, or giant open world can take its toll, y'all, so I recommend you switch it up with this one. You did me proud, Plucky Squire. You did me proud. Hey, good people of the internet, hope you enjoyed that video right there. If you did, make sure to like, subscribe, hit that bell, and run to the comment section and give me your thoughts about this topic. We love to see more games like this, and it's high time we start to look at what we get at all levels, including AAA, to get better. So make sure you take a look at my video on why AAA gaming needs to change. And with that being said, I am just about out of time here, but don't trip. We'll see you in the next one. Peace.